Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I did the story not so long ago about the truck driver who was sentenced to 110 years in prison in Colorado after a fiery crash that he was involved in which several people died. And I even said during that video that the 110-year sentence seems a bit over the top. I thought he should have gotten some jail time, but 110 years. And so there's been a lot of controversy and pushback, as we might say, after that story made headlines nationwide. There were stories of truckers stopping at the border of Colorado and parking by the side of the road in protest. There was also a petition that millions of people signed. And a lot of this type of stuff has apparently caught the attention of those in power in Colorado. So from ABC News, although it was widely reported and still being widely reported, and by the way, a lot of people sent this to me, and I can't mention them all. We'd be here all day. But controversial 110-year sentence to be reconsidered for truck driver responsible for fatal crash, according to the district attorney's office. So the district attorney has filed papers with the court saying to the judge, we want this court to reconsider the sentence. And a reconsideration is a technical term where you're asking the court to take a second look at something it has already done. So the judge said at the sentencing, he would not have chosen that sentence if he'd had the discretion, but he felt his hands were tied because the law said specifically that he had to do what he did. So now the district attorney's office is apparently saying, maybe we need to step back, take a look at this, and see there's some way around this to where we can possibly do it differently. Dina Zaru wrote this article for ABC, and the truck driver was sentenced on December 13th. He got 110 years in prison. The crash took place in 2019. 4 people died in the crash just outside of Denver. Several others were injured. And the judge did say that he would have given him a lesser sentence if he could. A spokesperson for the Colorado 1st Judicial District Attorney's Office told ABC News on Tuesday that the DA's office has filed a motion to start the process of reconsideration. They did that recently, and the Jefferson County District Attorney has requested that the court set a new hearing as soon as practicable. As Colorado law required the imposition of the sentence in this case, the law also permits the court to reconsider its sentence in an exceptional case involving unusual and extenuating circumstances, the motion said. The driver was 23 years old at the time of the crash. He was charged with 42 counts, was found guilty on 27, and the most serious of that was first-degree assault. Prosecutors sought the minimum penalties for each of the charges, and the highest of which is 10 years, but the number of the charges and a law says that these sentences have to be served consecutively, end to end to end. Now, the 8th Amendment of the Constitution says punishments can't be cruel and unusual, and as far as the defendant is concerned, this is cruel and unusual punishment, his attorney said. Now, it was his attorney talking to ABC News recently. Now, there was a petition on change.org advocating for a commutation of the sentence, indicating the crash was not intentional, and it was signed by more than 4.5 million people as of Tuesday afternoon, becoming one of the fastest growing petitions on the website. And there were several issues that arose here, and one of which is, what is the intent of somebody who's driving a truck and gets in an accident and they say their brakes failed? And the law will often say that you can create intent if somebody acts negligently or with wanton and gross disregard for the rights of others. It's stated differently from state to state. But the point is that he didn't have to think to himself, I want to hurt people, to be found guilty of something. But the question is, what is appropriate for somebody who's involved in a horrific accident, but they say that there was, circumstances that led to it. So the man was driving a semi-trailer loaded with lumber on a highway in Lakewood, Colorado in April of 2019. And according to the Associated Press, police said that after the man's brakes failed, he drove past a truck ramp before the crash. He testified that after the brakes failed, he crashed into vehicles that had stopped on the highway due to another accident that was further down the road. After driving onto the shoulder of the road, he crashed into stopped traffic at the Colorado Mills Parkway overpass, and then a pileup killed 4 people. Police said that the truck driver was driving 85 miles per hour before the crash. Now, his attorneys disputed that in court, but the speed limit there was 45 miles an hour. And if he was doing 85 in a 45 with a truckload of lumber, you can see where this is going. Prosecutors argued during the trial that the truck driver could have taken the runaway truck ramp after losing control of his brakes. And his attorney said that his client may have made some negligent mistakes, but the punishment is completely disproportionate to what happened. What he did does not deserve a life sentence. So even his attorney is saying, look, we're not asking to let the guy out and let him walk free. We're just asking for a sentence that makes sense for what happened. And I actually had some people, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on this, both in the comments underneath the original video, but also quite a few comments sent to me by email and messenger on Facebook. And I actually had someone tell me, they go, Steve, because of gravity, that truck can't go slower than 85 miles an hour, even if it had good brakes. And the guy claimed he was a truck driver. And I thought to myself, the guy says he's a truck driver, and he's incapable of going below 85 coming down a hill. I'm not sure which of those statements was false, but one of them was, because I don't believe he's a truck driver. And I also do believe truck drivers can go under 85 if they want to. Meanwhile, a professor of law in Denver said that this case has sparked outrage because the driver got the same sentence as someone who intentionally killed 100 people would have gotten in Colorado. And again, that's because you can stack those sentences and serve them all at the same time. In the states in the country which don't have death penalty, the maximum possible sentence is a life sentence. A Jefferson County jury found the truck driver guilty of 6 counts of first-degree assault, 10 counts of attempted first-degree assault, 4 counts of vehicular homicide, 4 counts of careless driving causing death, 2 counts of vehicular assault, and 1 count of reckless driving. The district court judge said during the sentencing, I will state that if I had the discretion, it would not be my sentence. Now, the judge would not comment on the case when asked by the news, understandably, because this is a pending case still, now that they've filed this motion. The man was sentenced to 10 years each for 6 counts of first-degree assault, as well as 5 years each for 10 counts of attempted first-degree assault, and that all adds up, and they tell me this, to 110 years. Meanwhile, the attorney for the truck driver even says, when the judge said he didn't have discretion, he was accurate. He was accurate. So the professor says that the judge was bound by sentence enhancers that are outlined in Colorado law, pointing to mandatory minimum penalties for certain crimes and certain classifications that enhance penalties for violent crimes, and also the bit about them being served consecutively instead of concurrently. The assaults here are classified as crimes of violence, which mandate that an individual convicted of more than 2 serve those sentences consecutively. The professor says one of the things that the sentence enhances and mandatory minimums do is take power away from the judges and give it to the prosecutor. Now, I do know that some people said, wasn't this guy overcharged with all of these counts? Couldn't they have charged him with less? And yeah, they could have. But you have to back up to a time when the case is getting ready to go to trial. And the fear is that if you go with just a few cases and just a few charges, that if things go wrong and the guy is found not guilty on those, now people are going to go, gee, you should have tried harder. So, meanwhile, the district attorney, when asked about the backlash over the charges and the length of the sentence, the district attorney told ABC News in a statement that prosecutors had initiated plea negotiations, but the truck driver declined to consider anything other than a traffic ticket. So apparently, they had offered him a deal before trial, and they had been told, apparently, the only thing he'll consider is, in essence, a civil infraction, traffic ticket. The prosecutor said the actions and decisions of the truck driver resulted in the loss of 4 lives, devastating injuries to the survivors, and, as we heard them state during sentencing, grave impacts to their families and loved ones. And the attorney for the truck driver argued that his client was overcharged in an attempt to coerce him into pleading guilty. But he didn't do that. So there are a whole bunch of different things going on here. Forces pushing in all kinds of different directions. And I actually had a couple people who said to me, Steve, the guy shouldn't get anything. He should literally just it was an accident, chalk it up to this stuff happens, and everyone should just move on to their lives. And I think that is what we call a super minority, meaning that there's very, very few people who believe that. But there are a couple people out there who believe that. Interestingly, I have gotten a lot of comments from truck drivers. And I've mentioned before, I've got quite a few truck drivers in my audience. In fact, I've got a truck over there, and I've worn shirts on camera for truck driving companies because they've been sent in to me by viewers. And a lot of truck drivers apparently listen to my stuff on iTunes because they can listen to it while they're driving. They're not watching videos, they're listening to it while they're driving. And truck drivers are professionals. They have a higher license that's harder to get and harder to keep, by the way, than average drivers on the road. And every time I mention truck drivers, one or two people pipe in and go, I got cut off by a truck driver. Yeah, ask them what happens to them. These guys and gals are on the road driving hellacious mileage and ridiculous hours, and they are professionals. And so I had quite a few truck drivers comment and contact me and say, Steve, I'm familiar with that stretch of road. That stretch of road is ugly, but a competent truck driver with a CDL and one who knows what he's doing wouldn't have gotten in that situation. And if they had, they could have gotten out of it with less than what happened here in terms of damage in the accident. So I can't even explain to you how many different people across the spectrum have contacted me. I actually had someone contact me who was there and actually showed me footage shot on their dash cam of cars burning. So that's the reach of YouTube, I guess, and apparently the reach of my channel. But the point is, I've heard from people all across the spectrum. I've heard from people in other countries. I've heard of truck drivers. I've heard from people who are just civilians, non-truck drivers. I've heard from all kinds of people. And I think the general consensus is that what the guy did was wrong in the sense that he should be punished. Okay? The other example I gave was the truck accident in Heartland, Michigan a few years ago, where the guy said, I got in the truck knowing the brakes were bad, but I said, it's my job. And the guy goes, go drive the truck. That's your job. That's your, go do that. I had a lot of people point out, and they say, Steve, if the guy's boss knows the truck's got bad brakes, isn't that partly on him? Yes. So I don't know if they ever got the bottom of what caused this accident. I can tell you that if there are serious accidents, then the feds get involved and come in and investigate almost like it's a plane crash. And they will come in and investigate, and they'll get to the bottom of it because they want to make sure that they can figure out what causes these accidents and how to prevent them in the future. So if, in fact, this guy's company knew or should have known that the brakes were bad on the truck, then yeah, they should be held to some standards also. They should. I don't know enough about that. I'm not sure if anybody knows that yet. But simply put, the guy was involved in a crash that it looks like it was caused by him. And it's true, his brakes may have failed, but as pointed out by all the truck drivers who've commented and contacted me, the guy could have reduced what happened by taking different steps, which he should have done. And truck drivers are held to a higher standard. They should know better than they should know what to do if these things happen. So I hope that the guy's sentence gets reduced. I don't want to see the sentence thrown out. I don't want to see the guy just walking tomorrow because there was a very serious crash here. And before you argue with me on that one, remember that his own attorney has even said the sentence should be reduced, but they're not asking to have it thrown out. So the district attorney has now joined with the people who say the sentence is too harsh and something should be done about the sentence. That is to reduce it from 110 years to something that's more in line with what happened, notwithstanding the rules and the laws in Colorado that talk about stacking these sentences. So thank you to everyone who sent it. Thank you to everyone who commented. It is a crazy story in terms of how much attention it's drawn, but it's a very controversial one, obviously. So the controversial 110-year sentence to be reconsidered for truck driver responsible for the fatal crash, that's according to the district attorney's office. So the motion has been filed not by the defense, but by the DA's office on this. And the story is from ABC News, and Dina Zaru wrote it. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. The way we act determines how we feel, way more often than the way we feel determines how we act.